Hi there, this is Ronnie coming at you with a video. I've just seen the video, I didn't even watch the whole of it. I was kind of closing my eyes and shaking my head and trying not to laugh. Where someone, I'm not going to name them because, quite frankly, uh, they do enough self-damage without me adding to it. They were talking about that point where in a game, sort of high drama tips over. And for them, the high drama tips over when the GM, rather than creating an antagonist for the players to despise, and there's real passion and all the rest of it, they tip it over by the antagonist doing something controversial, like torture or rape or something controversial. And this person's argument basically is when you cross that line, players essentially stop hating the antagonist and start hating the GM. I shake my head. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here. Not because I'm angry, because I know that if I get started, it's going to turn into a comedy rant, and I really don't want to do that. I want to address this issue head on about controversial subject matter in games. Some genres, some flavor of game, to sort of link back to the previous video for this, lend themselves more to controversy than others. Horror is a very good example of this. In fact, I would say that horror probably jumps into controversy more than any other genre. With science fiction, you can do controversy. With fantasy and supers and all the rest of it. Here's the thing. I have no idea what sort of experience he has with GMs. But if his if his experience with GMs has been such that the GMs have, without warning, just added controversial content to games, then I have to wonder, who the fuck is running his games? I've been gaming for 30 years, and I can tell you now, any GM worth their salt, when it comes to controversial subject matter, or the possible inclusion of controversial subject matter, follows essentially two lines of thought. Thought number one: they know their players, they know where the line is, and what would be considered acceptable and what wouldn't, in terms of subject matter Now that is different from how you then approach that subject matter. I'll give you an example. I ran a horror game at a friendly local gaming store last year. It was a modern day game. It was fairly dark. And they were at one point dealing with a motel manager who they found out had those kind of lipstick cams in all the shower rooms, all the bathrooms. And he was videoing them, people being naked. He had lipstick cams in the bedrooms, so he could video couples having sex that he would then post on the internet, and people would pay for content. And when they checked his computer, they found child pornography. Now, given that it was a Sunday afternoon in a friendly local gaming store, you don't go into details, and quite frankly, when it comes to something like child pornography, you don't go into details anyway. You say enough. I basically said there are images of children being abused. Quite strong images. And that was pretty much all I said. I let the players fill in the blanks in their head. You can approach controversial subject matter maturely. You can approach it sensibly and sensitively without being shocking for the sake of shocking. But if there are things that players may find too much to handle, and you know this in advance, even if you deal with that subject matter maturely and sensitively, the fact that it's even there would cause upset or consternation. Any GM worth their salt isn't going to touch it, because as much as it might be an interesting story, at the end of the day, this is a game. The second line of thought is the one that the overwhelming majority of GMs take, and that is when they are prepping the scenario. When they're doing what seems to be becoming widely regarded as session zero, which is character creation. Most GMs, when they're doing character creation, have a fair idea of what characters will work and what characters will not in a given scenario. At that time, when you're getting your players together and you're talking about the various, what characters will work, giving an idea of flavour and tone to the scenario. Any GM worth their salt, if there's going to be controversial subject matter, now again, just because there is controversial subject matter does not mean that it's going to be done in a sleazy, salacious or immature way. But if there is going to be controversial subject matter, bring it up. Bring it up and say, look, the scenario I have in mind is going to deal with this kind of subject matter. Are you comfortable with that? And get an idea. And if players are comfortable with the subject matter, that they know that you as a GM are going to approach that subject matter in a mature and sensitive and responsible way, and not just use it for salacious or sensationalism, then that's okay. And if they're not comfortable with it, if they're really not comfortable with that sort of scenario, with that sort of subject matter, you edit it out, or you change it, you change the subject matter to something that is more acceptable. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a thrilling adventure, it's a drama, it's a horror, it's a roller coaster for the senses. But at the end of the day, it's a fucking game. And as someone with we need to sometimes remember that it is a game. But I have never met a GM ever in 30 years of gaming who just drops in highly controversial subject matter into a scenario in such a way that would make their players so uncomfortable that they start hating the GM. That simply has never happened in my experience. And I don't get how anyone could possibly think excuse me, possibly think that that was normal. And this is why I find the particular video that I watched not only hilarious, but just fatally flawed at its foundation argument. If that person has met such a GM, then I pity them. But I would honestly say, in my experience, it's not the norm. Now, maybe in 30 years I have just been insanely lucky. But I don't think so. I don't think I've been lucky in that respect. I don't think it has been luck on my part that in 30 years I've never come across a GM like that. Even GMs that I've played games in who have been stunningly naff didn't cross that line. Maybe viewers on here, maybe you've had a different experience. If so, by all means, put it in the comments. But any responsible GM, responsible player, responsible human being is going to approach controversial subject matter with sensitivity, with intelligence, excuse me, with understanding of the sensibilities of their players, and with maturity, and not just drop something in for sensationalism. So I don't get it. I don't get why anyone would think that it's acceptable to or you even need to make a video on this issue. It seems odd to me. So that's my thoughts. Comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video.